Good evening, everybody. You're looking live at the New York Post, although I'm just sitting in a drab conference room here at the New York Post newsroom. But I am at the New York Post because tonight's the night for the New York Post and two-way post New York City mayoral debate post-game show. Cavalcade of folks from both the Post and two-way and others will join to break down the debate. 2 hour debate, 7 p.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll be rejoining you later tonight here from the New York Post. 9 o'clock Eastern time for 90 minutes. We'll break down the whole debate. And of course, conversation like no other will want your participation. So if you'd like to be part of the conversation, talk about the debate afterwards, go to two-way.tv, sign up and be part of it. And you can also watch live on YouTube, on the New York Post channel, and on two-way. Thank you for being part of it. Great guests tonight. Two very bright people who for whom I have enormous respect, who are on opposite sides of the view of who the next mayor of New York City should be, particularly their views of Mr. Mamdani. Nomi Kunst, Elizabeth Pipko will be here. Nancy Rommelman will be here, and David Burrell of WIC, our polling partner, who's been doing polling work for private clients here in the mayor's race and has great insight into what it would take for Mamdani to lose the race, because right now, of course, he's a heavy favorite. Other news today, three big areas to mention to you, and we'll talk a little bit about them as we preview the debate. First, the president said today that he would likely meet in Europe with Vladimir Putin after his meeting tomorrow at the White House with President Zelensky. That summit would be an extraordinary development in the on-again, off-again attempts to try to get Putin to settle the war. And of course, maybe Putin's more eager to meet now that there's talk of sending Tomahawk missiles into his backyard or front yard. John Bolton, long expected, long rumored, long anticipated indictment today on charges related to allegations involving the handling of classified information. Lots to say about that on various fronts. And then the shutdown continues, and Speaker Johnson's been out today, just did a CNN interview. Lots of back and forth with the usual players, the usual suspects, Johnson, Schumer, Thune, and the Senate went home. So this thing won't be settled till next week at the earliest, and there's still the outlines of a possible deal, but still no conversations that we've seen. Grateful to you all for being part of the two-way community. I hope you'll join us again at 9. If you want to get in on this conversation for the next 57 minutes, and you're here on the two-way platform, please raise your hand. Throughout the evening, always will remind you, please don't put smack in the chat. Extend peace, love, and understanding to all, particularly as we discuss the most divisive and controversial issue in the United States since the Civil War. Should Zohran Mamdani be the mayor of New York City? I exaggerate only slightly. In a moment, our guests will be here, and again, we'll preview the debate. We'll also talk about Putin and Bolton and the shutdown, but we will focus on the debate. So again, if you'd like to be on the conversation, please raise your hand. First, message from one of our sponsors, Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth produces clothes viscose made from bamboo, whether you're talking about their bedding, their t-shirts, or of course their blankets or their pants, all very comfortable and temperature regulating, guaranteed to give you a comfortable night's sleep. If you're talking about the bedding, snuggle up to your bubble cuddle blanket and you will not believe how soft and comfortable it is, intricately woven from ultra soft fibers. And t-shirts are great, and you know about the pants. Once again, the day barely goes by. Today is no exception, where a man will tell me how much he enjoys the pants, or a woman, but today was a man. So if you want to get in on this, you want to be part of the Cozy Earth experience, go to cozyearth.com. Use the promo code two-way for 20% off the best pants, joggers, bedding, shirts that you can imagine. Again, cozyearth.com, promo code two-way, 20% off, because home isn't just where you live, it's how you feel. Let's go home with Cozy Earth. All right. So happy to have our guests here today, and so eager to hear what they're saying in anticipation of debate night. And let's start with a woman who's a pretty big supporter of Mr. Mamdani. Nomi, welcome in. Are you having debate day jitters?
Yeah.
No? You going to a debate watch party?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
live tweeting last debate I was in a different country, and it was very funny because Cuomo's senior advisor decided to make me the center of her messaging for some reason. But no, it's he's going to do great. Cuomo's not a good debater. He wasn't a good debater when Cynthia Nixon ran against him. He wasn't a good debater when Mamdani wiped the floor with him. He wasn't a good debater when Michael Blake wiped the floor with him. And I think he's got everything to prove right now. And then he's got Curtis Sliwa, who I'm just like, yes, this is going to be so much fun. It's going to be so much fun.
All right, and again, I mean, you're unambiguously of cheering for Mondami to win this race,
He's my
just so
assembly member.
yeah,
Like,
so everybody knows. Less enthusiastic about Mamdani would be our Elizabeth Pipka, who's been here before. Grateful to you also for coming back, Elizabeth. How are you feeling about the stakes tonight and the prospects that Mamdani, who has been very good at stuff like this, might just lock the thing up this evening?
I'm not optimistic. I will say that. I agree with you. I think Mamdani has been brilliant on the campaign trail. I disagree with him on everything. But every time I hear an interview, I am more impressed with him. And every time I watch Andrew Cuomo give an interview to anyone, I wonder how on earth he thought that he would not have had to prepare for these interviews. So I don't expect much tonight. I'm very curious, obviously, what happens, but I don't think the race will change very much. I still expect Mamdani to be the next mayor of New York City, unfortunately.
Well, let's see what happens tonight, because based on just the two of you, the expectations for Andrew Cuomo couldn't be lower. But there's no doubt that anyone with the slightest fingertip feel, as you both have for political communications, looks at that guy's public performance, and it's like he's two beats behind so much of the time. Doesn't seem to really have a beat on this, and you just can only imagine someone who was better equipped to take on Mondami all the vulnerabilities as he has, and so far hasn't happened. I'm super curious to see how the moderators handle it tonight. Are they going to treat each candidate equally, or are they going to go harder at the front runner? Because that's what moderators do. I want to bring in Nancy, uh, normally our Portland correspondent, but also a lady who can talk about anything. Nancy, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Quite clear where Nomi stands on who she wants to win and where Elizabeth stands. Do you have a point of view people should know about what's going to happen or what you'd like to have happen in the race?
I'm voting for Sliwa, so here I'll just come clean right
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
I'm just ever surprised that New Yorkers, and I am a born and bred New Yorker, are looking at what Mamdani is proposing and being like, yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great. I want everything to be free. I don't want the competition that New York is based on. Not everything, but a lot of things. I just feel like what he's proposing is very theoretical and it hasn't been tested. And when it has been tested, like for instance, let's defund the police, the peeps haven't liked it. He's not, well, he very much was for that. He may be walking that back now, but in 2022, he wanted to cut, half their budget. That's a lot. And I think that it's a lot of untested stuff that like sounds really great, but I don't think in practice it's going to work. Do I think he's going to be elected? Yes, I do. And then we're going to see what happens to the city.
Yeah. No, Nomi, I'm sure you hear this all the time. Maybe not in your neighborhood, but if you go to the Upper East Side or Staten
I'm
Island.
looking at the Upper East Side right now. I can
Yeah.
see it out my
Okay.
window.
What would you say either on vibes or substance to allay the concerns of New Yorkers? Leave Israel out of it. Just talking about running the city. That a man as young and as inexperienced as him is going to have what is often called the second toughest job in American government. How do you allay people's concerns about that?
Well, I mean, number one, much of the proposals that he's proposing that the right seems to be losing their minds over, we already have a form of subsidized groceries, for instance, in this city, and we have food deserts, which is actually very much hurting large swaths of populations in the city. Free buses, it's not that expensive. People do it. There's many cities in America that have free buses. Expanding universal pre-K, expanding it to what it is right now, which is 3K, is something that is actually an investment in the city. So many families are leaving because they can't afford to keep their rent and pay for childcare, that it's something that actually helps keep working people in the city and middle class people in the city. He's taking on the real estate industry, which is, we need to do it. The real estate industry has been playing all these games to keep people from receiving affordable housing. They've been blocking the affordable housing, building affordable housing, but we've already done a lot of this stuff in the city. I mean, Mayor de Blasio, I'm biased, okay, but Mayor de Blasio had Blasio, and he cut some of the budget of the NYPD. The NYPD, that's just the reality, and they've been investigated by the FBI. The NYPD had a bloated budget at the time, and we just didn't want to come to terms with that. And that was under the safest years New York City has ever had. He cut that. So there's no correlation usually between the right-wing rhetoric and the fear-mongering. The reality is this city is unaffordable. It is extraordinarily unaffordable. You know, my coffee downstairs in Astoria at the coffee shop that I go to is $10 for a nice coffee every morning because the rent is so high. Why is the rent high? Because the real estate industry owns the city and is totally inflating the market. And you can't, I mean, we have empty, I'm looking at every side right now. Do you mean oligarchs park their money in these apartments? That's driving up the cost of real estate. They're getting tax breaks. You have empty apartments in the city because no one can afford to live here. So I don't care if these billionaires say they're going to move out of the city. They're already doing it. They're going to Florida for their own reasons. They still make their money in this city. And if Jamie Dimon, the head of Chase, JP Morgan Chase, says, okay, I'm ready to work with, Zohar Mamdani. If the former head of UBS, Robert Wolf, is like, I like the guy, I can sit down and have a conversation and relate to him, then, I think that the Republicans need a little bit of a wake-up call. We had our best years under the most left mayor we've had since LaGuardia.
Yeah. All right. Nomi, I have two reactions to what you said. First, I'm going to go on ChatGPT and find you a recipe for iced coffee so you can make it at home. Because
to be fair, I did buy it because of that.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Elizabeth first, then Nancy. I'd love for you guys to, just as we say in Washington, colloquy with Nomi and just either respond to what she said or ask her questions, because you're all three brilliant people. And here's Nomi, a smile on her face, saying this guy's going to be great for the city, and you two disagree. So I'd love for you guys to just talk about it while I do Wordle, because I didn't get to that yet. Elizabeth, I'll be listening. I can multitask. I'm just saying I want to stay out of it and listen to you all talk. So Elizabeth, just ask Nomi a question or rebut her or whatever you'd like. But it's kind of like a debate preview. You play Andrew Cuomo. Maybe
not Andrew Cuomo.
You'll do better than him. I have no doubt.
I was going to say, I don't know if I want to play Andrew Cuomo.
You can play the moderator, whatever. But just have it out in a peace, love, and understanding way. And then Nancy.
I am all peace, love, and understanding. Look, I don't disagree on majority of what you said. I just disagree that any of it's going to get fixed. I know a lot of New Yorkers who are right, a lot of New Yorkers who are left, who all agree on a lot of the issues that you just stated. I don't think your iced coffee is going to get any cheaper when Mamdani is in office. I would actually bet that it will not. At the same time, look, I know a lot. I've learned a lot in my years in politics, and it's usually that whatever people say when they're running that they're going to do never actually ends up happening, minus in the case of Donald Trump, which is why I support him as much as I do. But normally it never actually ends up coming to fruition, and usually I just tend to look at basic statements that they've made and seeing if our values align. That's why I, ended up on the right of the spectrum when I never knew if I was left or right or anything else. That's where I am right now, because that's the party that aligns with me. I think when someone goes out and wants to lead the single greatest city on the face of the earth, and they say the NYPD, for example, is a threat to public safety, they have lost my vote forever. I mean, there's a million other examples that I could give, but obviously if you and I fall very far on the political spectrum of left and right, we're going to disagree. I think he's going to win. I think New York is going to learn a difficult lesson. I disagree with you really mostly on de Blasio, because most people I know in the city do not like him. I don't think time under de Blasio was very good, and I have a lot of friends actually on the far left that despise de Blasio. So I don't know a lot of people that think life got better under him. I'm disappointed. I'm actually disappointed in myself that I had to sit here and encourage people to vote for Andrew Cuomo. I don't like Andrew Cuomo. I don't like the position that we're in. I think Mamdani is the next mayor. I worry what that means for the Democrat Party. I worry about what it means for New York. I worry about what it means for America. I think that's what's going to happen. I think a lot of people will learn a very difficult lesson.
Nancy.
I think one of the reasons, and I sort of am libertarian adjacent myself, one of the reasons why everything's so expensive here is because everybody wants to be here, right? It's competition. And, I agree with Mark, your coffee's still going to cost $10, and it's not just because of the landlords. I do wonder, I also agree with Elizabeth, people make a lot of promises and then they can't really keep them for a variety of reasons. One reason, I think, Mamdani is young, he's 33 years old. People like young. I get it. And he's appealing to a younger New York. And that's all well and good, though the way and what he's appealing to, I don't agree with and don't like a lot of it. But he's going to enter the New York political system. I just don't know if he's going to be able to get anything done. Now, that's not to say that the political system here shouldn't change. There should probably be changes, but a lot of it is embedded. And I think he's going to hear a lot of no. And then when he can't get the things done that he promised his constituents, whether it was, free busing or free this or that, because he can't make the other pieces in New York City move, what do? Do they start turning against him? They're like, but wait a second, you promised me this. And then it just gets all shilly-shallied. So I also was not a fan of de Blasio. I remember saying to my mother, who's a New Yorker, like, oh, Andrew Cuomo, she's like, yeah, I don't like him. Oh, but de Blasio, she's like, ugh, nobody likes him. So will Mamdani be more popular than de Blasio? Maybe, but I don't think that's saying very much.
All right. No, Nomi, your fellow panelists either are not fully aware or they're bold as hell. I don't know which it is. Either one.
Okay, I will say one thing, just to keep it in the gossip land. Elizabeth, I went to elementary middle school in Lancaster, New York, where your brother-in-law was my seatmate in math class, 7th grade.
Oh, wow. Okay, so then we're actually closer than we realized.
Yeah,
Then I can
yeah.
never debate you. We're family.
I looked, I was like, wait.
You're also empathetic. Nancy and Elizabeth, do you guys understand Nomi's enthusiasm for Mamdani? Can you connect to it, or do you? I mean, do you think it's because she's ignorant, or just like what do you attribute her enthusiasm to?
I think she's hopeful. I think she's optimistic. And I think it is absolutely the case that people like new. It's like, sure, I like, Coca-Cola, but here's this new brand of soda. I want to try it. Maybe it's going to be better. Maybe it's going to deliver things to me that I don't have. The Democrats, everything's shambolic right now, right? They don't know where to turn. And here's this guy, like maybe he's the new kind of Democrat. I just, he's definitely too DSA for my taste. And I wonder, I am, again, as I started this, I'm just very surprised that as many people in New York are like, yeah, I agree with these things that he's saying. I'm surprised.
Yeah. And Nomi, do you understand why, you referenced and I'm not going to repeat back exactly what you said because I'm too muddle-headed, but you basically suggested it was people on the right who are criticizing Mamdani. The reality is I have plenty of friends, as do you, I know, who would consider themselves of the left, who really don't want him to be mayor, some over Israel, but over other issues as well. So he may win, but there are plenty of people who are upset. I'm just wondering if you would acknowledge there are people who are upset who agree with you on a lot of issues in general, and it's not just plutocrats and oligarchs who are upset about him, right?
Of course. I mean, that's the electorate. I think that what I was essentially saying is there's a narrative that is being pushed by New York Post. I know they're the partners, but it's like, okay. It's very much a New York Post narrative. And then there's just the reality on the ground.
What's a New York Post narrative?
That it's not doable, that, he's seizing the means of production, that $30 an hour isn't doable. Well, here's the truth is, just to go back to de Blasio, because it is such a recent thing, Mayor de Blasio was at war with Andrew Cuomo. They knew each other for 25, 30 years, something like that. They worked at HUD together under Clinton. Like, they went to war. So much so that Andrew Cuomo orchestrated the IDC. He took 8 Democrats, had them leave the Democratic caucus, and made them caucus with Republicans so that the state Senate was Republican. So they would block everything that Mayor de Blasio was putting forward. So for instance, universal pre-K, that had to be strong-armed, but they still got it through, despite having opposition from Cuomo, the IDC, and also Trump. Now you've got Kathy Hochul and a Democratic Senate who is going to be much easier to move things through. And by the way, it's not even that much more complicated. You have universal 3K, now you want it universal. They did a press conference together yesterday, Kathy Hochul, over this. So there's just the reality that this is a guy who was in the assembly. He's got the entire political establishment at his back. A lot of this stuff has been in the works for a long time. And frankly, the city kind of runs itself. You've got Eric Adams, who's in Albania, cutting a deal. I don't know what he's doing. The city's running itself. You've got deputy mayors, first deputy mayors, you have institutions. Yeah. That's the thing that no one wants to talk about. It's actually a very good self-sustaining force. But
well, maybe if you have good deputy mayors. I want to show you 2 pieces of video of Mamdani. Then I want to bring in David Burrell to talk about polling. And then we'll go to people's questions and the fact that Trump might meet with Putin, whatever. We got a good panel here on this topic. So here we go. Ace Frehley of KISS passed away. for those of you for whom that might
Oh,
be a bigger
wow.
story than anything else. It's 74. Okay. Here's Mondami arriving moments ago right across the street here. You got your New York Post across the street from 30 Rock where the debate is. So right out the window. I could have shot this on my phone out the window, but I didn't. Here's Mondami arriving at 30 Rock just moments ago. Yeah. I got to say, I'm glad I don't have Rockette tickets tonight because it'd be hard to get across the street. Now, here's a campaign video that came out earlier today, I believe, from Mondami. And again, the guy's just so skilled on camera. He's so watchable. And his comic timing is genius. Roll that, please.
Good morning. I know some of you have expressed concerns about my age. You're worried about a 33-year-old becoming mayor of New York City. And I want you to know I hear you. That's why this weekend I'll be making a change. I'm turning 34, and I'm committing that for every single day from here on out, I will grow older. It's not something I ever wanted to do, but I know it matters to you, so I am. Get that out of here. Let's cut to the chase. The best birthday gift you could give me is to come on out and canvass. This is the last weekend before early voting starts on Saturday, October 25th. So head to ZahranForNYC.com/birthday, sign up for a canvass, bring your friend, bring a date, bring your parents, bring anyone you know. Because the best gift is to beat Andrew Cuomo a second time. And the only way we can do that is if we do it together. So let's go knock.
All right, I'm stipulating that all of us thought that was genius. Let's all give him one note of how it could have been better. My note is when they put the cupcake in, rather than saying what he said, he should have said, "Get the fuck out of my shot." As like that, to me, that would have made it better. They could have bleeped it, but whatever. Nancy, one note, how could that have been better?
No notes. He's charming. I mean,
Yeah.
the camera loves him. He's charming. He's got great timing. No notes.
Yeah. All right, no notes from Nancy. Elizabeth?
Don't be a socialist, otherwise it's great.
There's that. There's that.
Yeah.
That's
All
all.
right. All right. Naomi, any notes? Or just perfection?
I think my one note would be, and this is like very light, is I would probably throw in one issue that he stands for. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Like even at 34, I'm not too old to be disconnected from how young people are struggling in this city to affordability. Yeah. Good note. All right. Joining us now, David Burrell, our polling partner here at Two Way, founder, CEO of WIC, Atlanta-based research firm that does all sorts of magical things with data. David's been working for a private client, looking at a lot of data, doing a lot of surveys in the mayor's race. And we've talked about this before on Two Way, but David's here to update us on the eve of the debate. Everybody here, David, said earlier in the program, it's over. Mondami's going to win. I still want to see the debate because maybe Cuomo will suddenly decide, eye of the tiger, to do something. Maybe the moderators will finally hold him accountable. So if they say, should Hamas be armed? And he says, I care about New York, maybe somehow they'll get him to say whether Hamas should be armed. And maybe he'll say, yeah, Hamas should have a lot of weapons. Who knows? David, very data driven, says, in effect, it's not over, but it's very hard. And the electorate has to be a certain way. So David, thank you for joining. Tell everybody, just for broad strokes, what would have to happen for Cuomo to win?
Well, I think the first thing that would have to happen, and Mark, you nailed most of it, but the first thing that would have to happen is there'd have to be some level of belief that he can win. Because you're going to have to drive an extraordinary turnout if you're going to want to beat Mondani. And a turnout with a number of different types of group of people that hopefully would vote, in the Cuomo camp, but hopefully vote a large percentage for Cuomo so he can net a lot of votes. We're already expecting a huge turnout for this election. And to date, there's not been any single event that seemingly has driven the polls to get closer. Even, of course, Adams dropping out did drive the polls closer, but not close enough to inspire belief that he can be beat.
Right. So David, hold on 1 second. Just two quick things. Elizabeth may need to leave and then come back. So Elizabeth, if you need to do that, please do, and we'll see you later. And then you'll be joining us at 9. So David, just to clarify, maybe it's obvious to everybody, but just so I understand, you're saying in an election like this, to turn people out, to get people willing to take the time to vote for Cuomo, there has to be in the conversation the concept that he could win, so they're not wasting their vote. They're voting for someone who might win. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. You have to, well, I mean, just to drive turnout, there has to be some level of enthusiasm and inspire people who typically would not turn out, but maybe want to turn out to vote against Mondani. Say, hey, we can do this. We're going to turn out to vote. And, obviously one of the greatest, ways to inspire that type of enthusiasm is through polls getting close enough that you think there's a chance that he can win, even if you really don't like Cuomo, which is the case in a lot of, that's a whole separate problem that they have. But right now, the polls are not closing in the way that you would need in order to inspire that type of belief. And that's the biggest issue. And Mark, I think I sent a message to you this earlier that I think there's a little bit of hope that maybe the polling is wrong, which it often is. And a lot of times in August and September, which y'all saw with Trump and Clinton and even Trump and Biden, that, oh man, Trump was down so far, the conservative candidates down so far in August and September. And then all of a sudden things tighten up in October, right? And so I think there was a little bit of hope that we'd see that in the polls when you got probably just a better, a representation of the electorate. But that's not happening either, or at least it hasn't happened yet. And I think so. There's not been any single event. Maybe the debate will show us something, but there's not been any real event that's driven what I consider to be any belief that Cuomo can win. And that's going to be the biggest issue. If that does happen, then a lot of other things have to happen. But first, the belief has to be there, and that's what they're struggling with right now.
There's still rumors that Curtis might get out of the race. He can't get his name off the ballot, but how low would his vote total have to be for Cuomo to appreciably impact Cuomo's chances, since almost every second choice of a Sliwa voter would be Cuomo?
Yeah, I don't see it happening. I mean, if he dropped out of the race, then there's a possibility that it could go. And we did a lot of modeling on this. This is one of the big questions we've continued to get asked with our clients is, what happens if he gets out? And it doesn't, even if he dropped out of the race, it would not be a slam dunk. And it's not just because he's still on the ballot. It's that a lot of his supporters will stay home. They won't vote for Cuomo. They don't like him.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of issues. Go ahead.
What are the demographic groups that if they turn out in disproportionate numbers for whatever reason, maybe even because Cuomo has a stealth turnout operation that we don't know about, who are the demographic groups? You and I early on, friends, talked about the Hindu population.
Yeah, so the biggest one is the Jewish population, right? So if you could get 50% of the eligible Jewish people to vote in the city, then he would really start to chip away at Mondani's lead. But you got to keep in mind the best case scenario. Any model you put together, Mondani still has an 80 to 100,000 vote lead. Okay, so you had to turn out massive numbers of Jewish and then Hispanic, largely, voters in order to start really chipping away at that. I think the Jewish vote is the best opportunity for them. I don't see anyone doing any work in the Hispanic community. I know some people say, oh, well, the Hispanics voted for him in the primary. No, if you turned out enough Hispanics, then they would net a lot of votes for Cuomo against Mondani because most of them have, histories with socialism.
Right. One more question for me, and then Nancy, and then Naomi. Where do you have Mondami's support amongst the Jewish voters at this point? Is he at 25%?
Well, it depends on who's on the ballot. Depends on which way you test the ballot. But yeah, I mean, it's close to 25, 30%. I mean, that's really where you got to keep it at. And again, it changes when you start to get into these people who aren't projected to vote, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So the Jewish population is not projected to vote. He does not perform well with them. The problem is that there's no reason to believe that they're going to come out to vote in the numbers right now that would be necessary in order to turn the tide. Even though some good work is being done on that.
Yeah. Nancy.
So the last numbers, David, hi. The last numbers I saw was the Quinnipiac poll, which had 46 Mondami, 33 Cuomo, and I think like 13 or 15 for Sliwa. Is that about where we are right now?
Yeah, that poll's not completely inaccurate. I believe that the undecided voters, the current undecided voters, if they do turn out, are going to break for Cuomo. Just when we look at the crosstabs, that's what we think. So I do think that you're going to see a lot of the undecideds breaking for him if they turn out. And so that's one thing he does have going for him. That's like one of the 5 things that has to happen for him to have a chance to win. But the the idea that this is a 10-point race is very generous. So he needs to inspire some type of belief in order to raise the turnout with these other groups that he would net voters with. I think the bigger the turnout, the better it is for Cuomo. But yeah, I think that poll is not inaccurate at all. I just think that there's a potential. If I had to guess right now, I'd say Cuomo is going to perform a little bit better than that poll, but not nearly enough to win.
Nomi.
Interesting. Now, Mamdani's turnout operation is really impressive. I mean, they're doing a rally on Sunday with Bernie and AOC at Forest Hills Stadium. That's a huge situation. Like, that's like presidential level. So how on earth, is there a scenario in which he breaks 50, Mamdani, because of this turnout operation?
No, well, I don't think so. It would surprise me. I think that Mamdani's turnout operation enthusiasm is baked in already. I think that we already saw, we know they're going to turn out. We know his people are going to turn out. And not to discredit it, because I think that operation, that's how you win. He's doing everything it takes to win. And he's going to hey, we're already winning big, but we're going to push it. We'll get that extra 1%, that extra 1.5%. So he's already doing that. I don't see a scenario, because I think the undecideds are going to break for Cuomo. I don't think they're going to break for him. I don't think any of them are. Even after this debate, it doesn't really matter what happens. From what we see in the crosstabs, it just doesn't make sense. But it'd be, again, I guess I could be proven wrong in 3 weeks, but I don't see him breaking 50. But
David,
go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
Again, that's all right. So you say no matter what happens in the debate, and maybe I'll be proven wrong, and I'm not saying this will definitely happen, but this race has had no iconic moments.
Yeah.
It really hasn't. And there's been no interviews that have broken through, no TV ads that have broken through, no, diner confrontations. Like, if you care about politics and you're following it, you can name 10 things that have happened. But if you're a normal person, I just don't think the race is really on the radar. So I still believe something could happen in the debate that would be a big deal and could work to get Mamdani over 50, or could allow Andrew Cuomo to make this a competitive race. It isn't I know that doesn't typically happen, but couldn't it happen?
I think that it's more likely that something happens that does trigger some movement in the polls that you would see, or movement that you would see in the polls for Cuomo to make some meaningful gain against Mamdani. I don't expect Cuomo to have a good debate. He's never shown anything to make us believe that he can have a good one, right? So, but if he did, or more than anything, there are a lot of as has been discussed even on this show here. There's a lot of weaknesses that Mamdani does have that seemingly, if exposed in the right way, it's amazing. Like you said, there's been no big moments that you would think, if that got out there in the right way, that it could drive some meaningful movement. So I think Cuomo can outmaneuver Mamdani and expose that? No, but just by virtue of the fact that debates are unpredictable, I think that there could be something that, and Mark, if it did inspire some big movement in the polls, that's when you may see the turnout projections change, and that's where Cuomo quote has a chance, right?
I've never walked into a green room that had a package of Rice Krispie treats and not eaten one, but I could happen. It's
Right.
Possible. 5 minutes ago it didn't happen, but it could happen. Nomi or Nancy, any other questions for David?
Yeah, I think the other question, and it, just as a political nerd, and my concern, and I always run scared. So is that it is a general election, and even though it's an off year and mayoral elections are notoriously low turnout, it is a general election, and there are probably more likely to be institutional Democratic voters who, again, have maybe not been paying attention to the ins and outs of the campaign, maybe grab a New York Post every day, show up. They're like, oh yeah, Cuomo, I know his name. I'm going to go with that guy. Do you think that that's the edge that he's banking on right now?
No, I don't think I do think that he's going to outperform what the polls are showing right now. And I think if the election was held tomorrow, it would be a little bit closer than people would expect. And I have a number of reasons that we probably couldn't cover on the call, but just seeing a number of elections, and now we are very involved in the New York election right now. So I do think he'd outperform his current projections, but there'd have to be some enthusiasm. What I thought you were going to say is, hey, look, at the end of the day, the turnout's really low comparatively. If you look at the 2024 general election and a presidential election, this is going to be a very low turnout. And sure, if 60% of the Jewish eligible voting population turned out, then all of a sudden things start to get a little more interesting. So things like that, if you could inspire some belief and some type of movement to kind of create this turnout with certain groups of people. I still think Hispanics are good, are one for Cuomo too. Not because they like him, but just more because they won't vote for, someone with a socialist banner. But we're just not seeing it. I don't see that. I mean, we're not seeing any of that enthusiasm yet, or to make us believe that that's going to happen. Those groups will turn out at a high level. But that's what, if I was in your shoes, that's what worried me is like, hey, but if something happened and they just got they turned out at record rates, then this, the election could easily be won.
Yeah,
Can
Nancy.
I follow up? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So
no, you got it. Go ahead.
So it's interesting because he did. Mamdani did a rally in Washington Heights yesterday or 2 days ago to tap into the Hispanic population. But DSA has been very successful with Latina candidates. So there is something like it seems with an age I don't know, but there's something that seems to be there at least.
Well,
I don't know if it's medical.
Yeah, and also New York. I mean, one of the only Hispanic groups that don't have are not at least 2 or 3 generations separated from a story about how socialism destroyed their country is the Puerto Ricans, because that doesn't happen there. So there's a lot of Puerto Ricans in New York. So yeah, there's not, and so really, if you were going to try to tap into that and really drive turnout, especially the ones who aren't expected to, they all have a story you could tap into about anti-socialism story. Effectively, that's why they're in the country. But there's a lot of Puerto Ricans, and then they don't have that story. I'm not saying they would necessarily vote in majority for Mamdani, but they don't have that story, and I think it's the majority. I'm pretty sure it's there's
The largest Latino population in New York. And then,
yeah, so that's not a good thing, but not that the Cuomo campaign or anyone outside groups tapping into that anyways. So it's almost a moot point, or that we're seeing. No one's even trying.
Nancy.
Just sort of an observation about why it might be closer than we think it would be. I was in Portland, Oregon in 2016 when it was Clinton, Trump. I was surrounded by a lot of young people. It's a very young city. And man, were they for Hillary. I mean, they were going out, they were canvassing, they were TikToking, they were ready. And then after the election, I was like, but did you vote? They're like, no, I didn't vote. Like they've got a ton of enthusiasm, but they don't actually get to the polls. Whereas the normies, Mr. maybe Puerto Rican guy living in the Bronx, he goes to the polls, but he doesn't make a lot of noise about it.
And that's one of the reasons why polls typically get closer or they get maybe a little more accurate when you get close to an election is, in August and September, the people who are civically engaged are the ones who, are identifying with the cause and they're doing all this. They didn't know if they're vote or not, but like once you get close to election, a lot of America wakes up and they say, oh, well, I will take a poll now. They're not paying any attention. And so that's why polls do get better as you get closer to election. It saves a lot of pollsters credibility because you could be, you saw pollsters that were like 20 points off or something like that. And then all of a sudden, oh, we were only 4 points off on their last poll. But it's just that sampling is a little bit easier at the end of in October because everyone's so political, they're so engaged civically. So because the election's right around the corner. But Nancy, but the point I made earlier, we were actually looking for this and we're not seeing it yet. Like, is it going to close in because all your normies who are just going to turn out and vote, but aren't really involved in all the hype, they are answering polls now and you're just not seeing enough movement, in my opinion.
What was the difference why did they get so wrong in the primary then? I mean, the turnout was high and turnout for the primary was high when it's not usually high.
I have no, honestly, we were not involved. I mean, I can be honest here. We were not involved at all in any of that. We get asked that question a lot. And at the end of the day, I would say it's not a cautionary tale, but, like I said to you earlier, and I mean, that there's a possibility because so few people relative to a normal general election are going to turn out or in a primary election that anything can happen with just a relatively small number of the population turning out, right? They can shift everything. And that's what happened in primary. They just didn't expect this group or the subgroup of Democratic subgroup to turn out. And it's hard to track that. You can't really poll it.
But isn't the answer that a certain percentage of Mamdani's voters were not regular voters and you're just not going to have them in the model, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right. 2 more pieces of video to show you. Then we're going to get to your questions for this great group. And ladies, I'm sure you agree with me that if you did run for president, you'd want David to be your pollster because he's not like a normal pollster. He doesn't speak in a either confusing way or an unctuous way. He's just a normal person. Okay, here's another video of Mondami arriving because you can see him better in this one, and it'll make Nomi all fired up and ready to go. Here we go. Mondami coming to 30 Rock. That's why I call him the Ugandan JFK.
Ah!
Call him the Ugandan JFK. All
I
right. Waiting for one other piece of video that I want to show you. My colleagues will tell me when it's ready. Real quick, John Bolton put out a statement. No surprise, pretty long statement saying this is prosecution is persecution and or persecution is prosecution, and explaining his declaring his innocence. So, Noah, do we have it? If not, I'm going to do a quick sponsor read.
Literally like 30 seconds to do
30
the
seconds.
sponsor.
All right, let me bring you another word from another sponsor. Then we'll look at the video, and then we will get to your questions. So raise your hand if you want to be in a conversation. A few weeks ago, I came home, and outside my front door, a giant box, 7-foot box containing, of course, a tree, coming from the folks at Fast Growing Trees. Incredible, because if I wanted a tree, I don't know, drive to a nursery, chat with them about what kind of tree to buy. No, instead, went online to fastgrowingtrees.com. You can get a consultation. You want to plant it inside, outside, it depends on where you live. They will give you their great advice about what kind of tree to get, or more than one tree. Right now, if you go to fastgrowingtrees.com, use the promo code TWOWAY, believe it or not, 15% discount off your purchase. And it's a great time of year to plant. And I can't tell you how excited you'll be when the box shows up and you open it up. And rather than some deodorant or maybe some socks or whatever you'd normally get from Amazon, there's a tree in there. And you can plant it inside, put it inside in the pot it comes in, or you plant it outside. They'll give you all the advice you need. So again, go to fastgrowingtrees.com, promo code TWOWAY to get 15% off. Tell them David Burrell sent you. They'll be super excited. All right, is the video ready? So this is
Yes.
the Attorney General's race in Virginia. Debate between the Republican incumbent, his Democratic opponent. Everybody here knows Democratic opponent recently had his private text traffic made public in which he wished death upon a Republican leader and the Republican's family. Here is the Republican incumbent Attorney General running for re-election in the debate tonight, excoriating his opponent.
And I find it a little bit stunning that today you say one of the pillars of your public
Re-rack
safety
it, play it with the
platform
audio.
is protecting
Better
children.
with the audio.
Were you
swear to God.
protecting Jennifer?
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
Out. And I find it a little bit stunning that today you say one of the pillars of your public safety platform is protecting children. Were you protecting Jennifer's children when you said you wanted to see them die in their mother's arms? How can anybody who's ever worked in any of the crimes against children, all of the areas of federal and state local law department, how can they ever take you seriously, be the top prosecutor, knowing that you view that children should die to advance a political agenda? It's unconscionable, and if you were truly sorry, you would not be running for this office because you disqualified yourself.
Whoa. Maybe Andrew Cuomo will do something like that tonight. Who knows? All right, time for questions for David and Nomi and Nancy, and maybe Elizabeth will pop back up. Who knows? Come on in, tell folks where you are, what's on your mind. We start with Richard. Richard, thank you for being part of Two Way.
Thanks, Mark. I really agree with your opinion that the debates do matter. And my question for the panel, particularly David, is what, if anything, and I'm no fan of Mondami at all, but what do you think Cuomo can do tonight to possibly advance his cause during the debate?
Well, I mean, there's two ways you can look at it, in my opinion. One is that, what group can, potentially inspire a win for you, and that's the Jewish population, the Hispanic population. So I think if Mamdani has a historically bad moment and Andrew Cuomo actually capitalizes on it, which we'll see if he can do, when talking about any of the Israel-Palestine issue or anything in that subject, I think what the number one thing that you can do to win if you're Cuomo is inspire the Jewish population to turn out very high rates. So that's the first thing you got to look for. Can you capitalize on one moment like that, or does it just if the I don't think he will create that scenario for himself, but if the opportunity does, even just with the moderators arise, can he really push it forward and create some real viral moments and some enthusiasm? And then after that, the campaign and the outside spending groups got to capital, and then the ground groups got to really go, put it to work. And that's the one thing that, there is some groups doing a really good job on this, but it's a tough task. That's the big thing. The other thing is I'm like, I keep thinking, is there a way to, can you inspire some defection from the slew of voters? Because that's your next. And again, that's why I said earlier, like that's a part of the equation. It's like if you can't inspire the idea that you're going to win, there's no belief, then that's going to be very tough to do. I don't think they'll just magically do it. And obviously, Cuomo's already said he doesn't want a Trump endorsement. So I think so those are the two things I would say. Hey, if you could really nail it on both those, then all of a sudden, let's say that you do get some defections from Sliwa, and you also have can really ding Mamdani, which even just driving down his turnout, driving down the enthusiasm for him would be good. But more than that, it's just inspiring a bigger Jewish voting turnout, because that's the one group that if they turn out at high rates, it could kind of change at a really high rate, it could kind of change the trajectory here.
Yeah. Thoughts, Nomi or Nancy?
I think with the Jewish population, I mean, Mamdani has made a lot of inroads, and not just with progressive Jewish communities. There are some in the Hasidic community who've come out and short of endorsing him, have said, like, he really, this is likely to be our next mayor. Let's figure out how to sit at the table with him and understand. And I think that really hurts Cuomo, of course, but he's fighting against a negative narrative against himself and doesn't have the enthusiasm. And there's this sort of inevitability of Mamdani at this point coming from people that you wouldn't necessarily think would be praising Mamdani, and they're giving him some points right now. So I think Cuomo, I mean, I might be wrong, but I think he's just relying way too much on name ID establishment recognition and consolidating. I mean, he's trying to get Eric Adams to endorse him right now. That's as a few hours ago was reported. So, I don't see that being enough up against an energized movement that's bringing in new voters that have never been to the polls before. So,
yeah, Nancy.
I agree that Eric Adams' endorsement is not going to help at all. I agree, obviously, that the progressive Jewish vote in New York sees something in Mamdani they like, but boy, the non-progressive Jewish vote in New York sees something they really, really, really don't like. And that will be interesting in terms of, his views on Israel, his wife's views on certain things, and Hamas heroes. That I think it would be interesting if I haven't heard them making a lot of noise, but it'll be interesting to see tonight in the debate if it's possible, if either of the candidates step in a very large hole.
Yeah. Richard, thank you. Grateful to you. Matthew, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, what's on your mind for our great guests.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me. I'm from here in New York City. I'm a lifelong Democrat, and I think that Zohran Mamdani is probably the most repugnant and threatening candidate who's run for office in my lifetime. And I don't say that without exaggeration. And if you've read Philip Roth's Plot Against America, and it's a story about President Lindbergh being elected in the 1940 election, I believe that Zohran Mamdani is that much of a threat. I've been sort of appalled by how Andrew Cuomo has run this campaign, how there again and again he's missed opportunities to attack Zohran Mamdani, whether it's over his experience, about his family's property in Uganda, about the issues regarding Israel, and a whole bunch of other related issues concerning Jews. So I've kind of given up on the election. What I wanted to ask you, because I am clinging to hope, I've never voted for Republican before, but I'm now counting the days before I can vote for Elise Stefanik for governor. And what I wanted to ask David and perhaps Mark is, how does Mamdani affect the dynamic in New York politics? Does it increase, is there polling that's already been done does it increase the likelihood of Elise Stefanik becoming governor? And then I also wanted to understand too about the politics of potentially if Mamdani becomes this anti-Israel ideologue and starts violating federal law by trying to arrest Netanyahu, what the politics are of a New York governor removing a mayor from office.
Nomi may know about that.
Um, yeah, so I can answer, part of the question just because from a relevant standpoint of, what is this election and the uh, current dynamics and new type of voters that are turning out, what does it mean for potential future elections? And, that's one of the things that from our client standpoint, there is no moral, victories here, from a standpoint of our clients, how they're looking at New York City. Because it's a lot of times it's their home and they have a lot of business interests there, and so there's no win for them if and again we pull on all sides. It's not like we're like a strict Republican group or something, but there is a lot of conversation about what happens if you do if the turnout is really high in New York City with the Jewish vote, for example, or certain groups that never voted before, and what would that mean for future elections? I mean, this is something we're talking about all the time. I think the bigger thing you would see, though, is more of if Mondani does become a cautionary tale once again of what these type of politics can do to a state or a city, then that's really what's going to be the biggest impact. I don't think we're going to see something in the turnout that's going to be like, oh wow, do you see this thing in the turnout for the mayoral race? This means that the governor race could be totally different. I just think it's going to come, based on the fact whether whether some of the policies and his stances actually create the results that, of course, which type of results it creates. Then I think it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
You see that in multiple different states and cities, and it's so we'll see.
Yeah. Three things just flooded into my inbox that relate to the race that I want to share with you, Matthew. Thank you. All are quantitative in one way or another, and David, huge fan of quantitative, makes a living off it. Nomi and Nancy, women of numbers as well. So here we go. New Fox News poll on the mayoral race. Mondami right at 49, closer to 50 than he's been in any public poll, at least. 49 Mondami, 28 Cuomo, 13 Sliwa. And if you go to likely voters, that's amongst registered. Likely voters, Mondami breaks 52% to 28 for Cuomo, 14 for Sliwa. Kind of incredible. If true, then the race is over, no matter what happens in the debate, probably. So that's one set of numbers. Here's another set of numbers. One mystery in this race is we have not seen the tens of millions of negative ads and other voter communication that many expected to come against Mondami. Maybe that's going to happen now. Here's some checks that have been written. Joe Gebbia, Airbnb co-founder who serves as Donald Trump's chief design officer, gave $1 million each to the two anti-Mondami super PACs. And Bill Ackman gave $1 million to one of the super PACs and $250,000 to another. So there's money flowing. Now let's polymarket where the race stands 7 minutes away from the start of the debate. This is from our partners at Polymarket. And I'm looking for that data. Is that in my email or that's in my texts? Let's see. Probably
It's
in my
up.
text. It's up. There it is.
Yep,
Thank
it's
you.
up.
Mondami, 87.7% odds, according to the bettors at Polymarket. Cuomo, 10.7. Sliwa, pretty much zero. So we're going to look and see what the betting markets say right after the debate and see whether the Polymarket bettors are impacted by watching. So stay tuned for that. Again, reminder, tonight, our special coverage with the New York Post begins at 9 Eastern. The debate's going to start in 7 minutes. You can watch it on various websites, including WNBC. It's a 2-hour debate for 3 candidates. I'm not great at math, but that's a lot of time for the 3 of them. See if anybody gets winded. And then at 9 o'clock Eastern time from here at the New York Post newsroom, joined by, from the New York Post, Lydia Moynihan, Ricky Schlott, joined by my two-way colleagues, Michael Moynihan, no relation, Megan McCain and Dan Turrentine, and then others. But mostly, because we like conversations like no other, we want to hear from you. So if you want to be part of the conversation and join on the two-way platform, go to twoway.tv. You'll see there clear instructions about how to sign up. And if you want to watch on YouTube or on X and spend the night putting smack in the chat, or not, please don't. You can watch on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, on the Post YouTube channel, or on the website. So please join us 9 to 10:30 Eastern time for full coverage. I guarantee you, it'll be a conversation like no other, in large part because of our great guest. Nomi's coming back too, by the way, and Elizabeth also. Nancy and David, you're welcome to join too. A cavalcade of brilliant people, but also your participation. So we'd love to if you watch the debate with us and then join us at 9 o'clock Eastern time for full coverage. final comments from each of you, and I think Elizabeth's back too, so we'll get her into comment too. What do you do during the debate besides watch the debate? Wordle, eat Doritos. How do you spend your debate evening? Nomi, drinking your
wine.
iced coffee, drink wine.
Oh,
Yeah. All right.
nice coffee off at 4 o'clock. Then you move
Yeah.
to wine. Come on
Wine.
now.
All right. So you're going to be a great guest at 9 o'clock.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Nancy,
Pay attention.
pay attention. No food,
Yeah,
nothing.
probably some pretzels. Yeah, why not?
Pretzels. Okay. David, what do you do during debates?
Oh, I haven't thought about that. I got baby twins at home, so I'll
Yeah.
probably call them up and seeing if they're asleep.
All right, Elizabeth, I'm thinking crocheting. Do you crochet during the debate?
Oh my God, no. Do I give
No.
crochet vibes?
No, I was just
Okay, good.
I was just kidding. I was going for the absurd.
Good, good. Then I feel better.
Yeah.
I stuff my face. It's entertainment. When it's
Yeah.
not like your own candidate on the line,
Yeah.
everything's
Well,
fine. It's just fun.
So be more specific. What are you eating?
Okay, based on our usual topics, actually.
Not a bacon cheeseburger. I
No,
know that.
no, not a bacon cheeseburger. I stopped by the kosher supermarket today and bought some kosher sushi, ribs, some hot dogs, a lot of things that I'm gonna warm up and stuff my face with as a few people embarrass themselves on TV.
So I bought this this bag of high energy trail mix. Let's see what the number one ingredient is. Dried cranberries, cranberry sugar, sunflower oil, walnuts, dried pineapple. So I probably more sugar in here than in a Milky Way, but it'll keep me awake.
No one's drinking? That's like the best part of a debate.
I'm hosting. No, I mean, I can guess drunk. I can't host drunk.
Okay.
But right after, there are bars all over 6th Avenue. I'll probably take some Mondami supporters out for I don't know, screwdrivers. I don't know what they drink. Anyway, very grateful to you all for joining and spending the hour with us and sharing your wisdom. Best pregame show. You're going to want to join the best postgame show, 9 o'clock Eastern time. Please join us here on the Two-Way platform or on YouTube. New version of Next Up is posted too. You watch that in your spare time. Scott Jennings was my guest, and my reported monologue is on what Democrats are saying about whether it's smart to just be the resistance party or whether they should have a positive message. Spoiler alert, yeah, they should. And then, of course, we'll have full coverage of the debate also tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern time. But before you think of Sean and Dan, think about Dan, Nomi, and everybody else joining us, Elizabeth joining us in 2 hours from now at the end of the debate. Thank you for watching this program. Thanks to all the great guests who joined us and the folks who raised their hands. And we'll see you at 9 Eastern time. Enjoy the debate. Nomi, cheers.